My lady, there are normal procedures in the appointment of board members in state-owned entities as well as in the private sector. Specifically at South African Airways, I saw an advert that was on the paper, and then I responded. I was referred to talk to the DG of the department. At the time, it was Molife. I can't remember her name, but at the time there was a minister, Barbara Hogan, who was the Public Enterprises Minister at the time. I was asked for a brief interview, which is a normal course, it's a normal process. I was asked to submit my curriculum vitae, which I did, and then I was called that my name was shortlisted by Mrs. Hogan. Maybe if I can finalize that, I was then told that I'm shortlisted, but the process is a cabinet approval process because of the size of the entity, the SOE. For me, that is the normal process that I had to undergo. And I then got to hear that our names were read in Parliament as the people that were shortlisted for the board in 2000 and I think beginning of 2009. And that the list that was submitted and recommended by the then Minister of Public Enterprises was duly considered, and I was amongst those people.
Is there any truth to the allegation that you were seconded or forwarded to the SAA board by former President Zuma?
That is not true. As you have said, it is an allegation, or it was some of the media things that were spoken about. My lady, I remember I've served in a number of boards, including the Jacob Zuma Foundation, which I chaired for quite some time, including ABSA board. So this particular day we had a foundation, we were going to have a foundation meeting. Therefore, the normal process was to report to the patron of the foundation on issues we were to discuss at the foundation meeting. When I tried to call his PA, it was fortunate that the PA passed the phone to him. He said, I am still in Cape Town, we have just adjourned, but the agenda of that particular meeting you are going to have, I need to edit. I need to add some of the things. But of particular interest to me was for him to ask me a question, to say, is your other name Cynthia? I took a particular interest, my lady, to say, why would you call me Cynthia? Or where does this come from? Because I do not like the name. And then I said, yes, my other given name is Cynthia. He laughed. Then he said, I heard the Dudu Cynthia Myeni being read in the cabinet memo. There was a submission that had been done. So I looked at the Dudu Myeni, and then that coincided. Hence I'm saying, is your other name Cynthia? That is how he got to know about my appointment. He had no contribution in my appointment at the South African Airways. And secondly, in all my journey, in my career, my lady, there's never been one single entity which I served in where he would in particular be interested or be party to that particular entity except for his foundation.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to start with what we have is Emirates Bundle, Volume 1. I'm going to the South African Airways Comprehensive Network Fleet Plan that starts at page 14. 14, 1-4. Let me page 14. Thank you. Do you recognize this document?
My lady, I do recognize this document before the court.
What is it?
It's a South African Airways Comprehensive Network and Fleet Plan.
Can you give us some context of what this document was about?
Part of the mandate of the South African Airways Board was to turn the airline around. Turning an airline around meant doing a comprehensive long-term turnaround strategy, which was approved by the cabinet. Therefore, part of the LTTS contained a report on the network and fleet plan, but what we decided to do as the board was to say, let us look at an independent consulting firm that was going to do a proper review of whether what we have done is good in terms of the global standards and also can stand the test, can also yield the results that we wanted to achieve as the airline. And therefore, this is a report that was done by Intervistas, which is a consulting firm that presented to us.
Now, ma'am, I will not go into the in-depth context of this report, but I will just ask you to make reference to page 66. Now, if you look at page 66, it's titled Recommendations and Conclusions. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Now, the one in particular I want you to read for us is the following. It's the fourth bullet point from the top. It starts with the word add. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
What does it say, ma'am?
Add daily Johannesburg, Dubai with A340-600 aircraft and expand code share alliance with Emirates.
Now, do you see there that there's something of a footnote?
Yes.
What's the number of the footnote?
26.
Now, can we go to the bottom of the document and see what the footnote says as under point 26? Do you see that?
Footnote 26
Yes.
reads as, requires South African government to enforce order that Emirates reduce Dubai-Johannesburg frequency to the authorized 3 daily flights.
Right. Now, I'd like you now to turn back to page 44. The last paragraph, there's a heading there that says, under 5.1, that says changes in fleet. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Now there's last paragraph. Can you read that last paragraph for us, please? It starts with a review.
A review of new route opportunities show that few can support the operational cost of an A340. Only one new route can profitably support an A340-600, that is Dubai in partnership with Emirates, assuming a reduction in Emirates Dubai-Johannesburg, flying and replacing this reduction with an SAA flight. Even here, an A330 produces better results, but no aircraft are currently available to operate new flying of any kind.
Right, thank you. Now I'm going to ask you to read one last chapter at page 15.
1.5.
1.5. So we're going back in the back. The heading is called Executive Summary. There's the last paragraph at the bottom. You see that?
Yes, I do.
It starts with almost all the actions. You see it?
Yes.
Now, may you please read that last paragraph with almost all the actions? It's quite lengthy and you can stop after point 2 in the middle of the paragraph. But carry on.
Must I start from almost?
Yes.
Almost all the actions proposed are ones that South African Airways can unilaterally implement. However, several will require the assistance of government, not in providing further financial support, but in taking actions to allow South African Airways to seize upon route opportunities. 1, negotiations with Ghana to allow Accra, Washington. 2, enforce current air service agreements requiring that Emirates only operate the capacity permitted to the South African Airways, so that SAA has an opportunity to compete.
Now, thank you. Was this report presented to the board?
My lady, it was presented to the board and it was adopted and approved by the board.
The last paragraph, the last line you say, enforce current air service agreements requiring that Emirates only operates the capacity permitted so that SAA has an opportunity to compete. What did you understand that to mean?
I think there is history to this relationship. Yes. I don't know if I may delve into that history.
Good.
It would be understood that the SAA and Emirates has a code share agreement. But in 2010, during the World Cup, Emirates was allowed more frequencies.
Can you please explain what frequencies are?
It's the number of times that particular airline, which is not South African Airways, comes into the country, into our shores.
Thank you. Then you may proceed.
Thank you.
Then you may proceed with the history.
So in 2010, Emirates frequencies were increased. But there was a proviso that the increase was because, or it was as a result of the 2010 World Cup. After that, there was an understanding and an agreement that that was going to be taken away. In other words, it was a temporary arrangement. In 2014, if I may continue, the former CEO by the name of Mr. Galawe wrote to the Department of Transport, who is responsible for policy and issuing these frequencies, complaining that the South African business is shrinking, and therefore we would like you to keep your word in terms of the agreement you had given to the to Emirates for these frequencies that were increased. In part, if I may advocate, it meant that Emirates would land in ORT and also land in Durban and also land in Cape Town. Not only the arrivals, but these frequencies became basically 16 because they don't go back empty. So obviously the international market was shaken, and as a result the CEO wrote a letter to the department, and the department responded positively by saying we shall indeed enforce what was decided in 2010, and then Emirates must go back to the original arrangement that we as the government of the Republic had given. And my lady, if I may, we as the South African Airways, and I speak on behalf of a collective and I speak as the board, we did not get the kind of permission to other countries where we would have that kind of freedom in their countries, where we would land as we please. You land in a country, in any country, and you go back, but you don't do the internal, or you don't land in other destinations within the country, because that is the responsibility of the feeder of that particular airline, which is a smaller airline.
Right. Now we'll get to the critical part. It has been alleged that you prevented executives of SAA from signing a non-binding MOU with Emirates, and as a result thereof, South African Airways' relationship with Emirates collapsed, and the airline lost a massive business opportunity. Others put it in the billions. My question to you is, do you accept the allegation that you were responsible for the collapse of the relationship?
I must object, my lady. It's never been our case that the relationship with EK collapsed, with Emirates collapsed. In fact, what many of our witnesses testified was that what happened was that the existing relationship with Emirates merely continued as a result of this lost opportunity. So there was no collapse in the relationship. What collapsed was this new deal.
Just not to confuse the scene, otherwise she might be forced to answer something that is not actually in place. I think this time it is correct. The only allegation regarding the collapse is regarding the Emirates deal, the specific deal. That is also how I understood this case.
Okay. I'll rephrase the question now. Do you accept the allegation that you collapsed the potential deal or business opportunity that South African Airways would have had with Emirates?
My lady, I don't accept the allegation. It is baseless and it is not true. I've read on media and I've heard this allegation. It is incorrect. And I'm glad I'm before the court to state the facts about the Emirates deal. And I've seen that it has even been priced. It's got billions of rands.
Right.
Okay. It is not true.
Thank you. Now, evidence has been laid to the effect that sometime at the beginning of May, this Emirates MOU was presented to the board for consideration. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
Now, if you may go for me to page 117.115. Do you have that?
I have it. Thank you.
Now, that at the bottom of the page is what appears to be an email from yourself. You see that?
Yes.
And the time signature there says this is sent on the 2nd of May at 7:54 a.m. And it is addressed to John Tambi, Tony Dixon, Yake Kunana, I think another Yake email, and then Wolf Mayer. Do you see that?
Yes.
The heading is Emirates MOU and proposed communication.
Yes.
Now, may you please read to the court what it is that you wrote on this email.
My lady, the email reads as follows. Good morning, colleagues. Please find the attached revised MOU with Emirates. I have asked the acting CEO some questions and await his response. Given the urgency of our travel to Dubai, I have decided to forward the same questions to Sylvain, something I prefer not to do, to write directly to the executives. One concern of this memorandum of understanding, over and above what I will forward to you, is that Emirates is now going to, there's a typo there, it says NOE.
That's fine.
Is now going to enjoy 8 frequencies. SAA is giving them more frequencies, yet we complain that our business is shrinking. I urgently need to know why we want to give more to them and not to claim the same to them over and above code share. We are giving them more. Dr. Tambi, why are we allowing Emirates to fly into the country different destinations instead of getting into ORT only? We keep saying our local routes are not profitable, yet it is the very executives that open these routes to foreign carriers. Is there anything I need to know that I don't know? I will not allow other carriers to enjoy many internal or domestic frequencies at the expense of South African Airways. Sylvain must know our concerns, and he must be part of continuing to grow SAA and not to allow competitors to take advantage. Why would we shrink SAA and give Emirates 8 frequencies? I've been asked to go, excuse me, my lady. I've been asked to go to Dubai on Monday without having seen this document. There is urgency for us to go to Dubai. It is important to have an urgent board meeting before we go. We need your approval as the board. I need to inform National Treasury. We must all be aligned. It is important. Then I signed.
Thank you. Did you ever receive a response to this email, ma'am?
I did not receive any response.
Now, can we go back to the top of it? And I want to make particular reference to one line, and I'd like your thoughts on it. It says, I've decided to forward the same questions to Sylvain. Something I prefer not to do, to write directly to executives. Do you see that?
Sorry, is it in the same email that
Yes.
I read? Okay.
First paragraph, sorry.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Last line of the first paragraph. Now, the question I need to ask you is the following. You say here, I have decided to forward the same questions to Sylvain, something I prefer not to do, to write directly to executives. What do you mean, something you prefer not to do, to write directly to executives?
The chair of the board, my lady, I apologize. Sometimes I respond to looking at advocate. The chair of the board's responsibility starts and ends with the board, and then we facilitate a meeting between the board and the executives through the chairman and the CEO. That is the protocol. Therefore, if I were to write to the executives, it means then I am getting into the terrain of the CEO. Therefore, Sylvain Bosch was part of the executive team, which belonged to the CEO. So if I needed to communicate into the group, into the airline, into the group, I needed to communicate through the CEO. That is the kind of the protocol in terms of the relationship between the board and the executives. Hence, because I'm mindful of not getting into the space that is not mine, I put this into the email that I am copying, or I'm talking to Sylvain directly, because he was heading a very important unit at SAA. He was responsible for commercial. So part of these relationships, a group executive who was a commercial expert, a foreigner, by the way, he was not from South Africa, he was from France, but he came with, highly recommended, I think he was appointed by the former CEO Kalau, but that, in a nutshell, is the reason why I put it here, so that the CEO does not feel that I have had a direct communication with the executives.
You see, there were allegations made along the lines that you were in the habit of giving instructions to executive members. Do you accept those allegations?
May I ask you to repeat the question?
There was an allegation made that said you were in the habit or did it frequently to give direct orders to members of the executive. Do you accept that allegation?
I don't. It is not true.
Now,
may I?
Yes, you may.
My lady, when there is a need, for instance, we had acting CEOs, and I remember in one occasion where we had an extended special board meeting, which the CEO was allowed to invite the executives. So I'm saying that there were no direct instructions that would come from me straight to the executives.
Now, let's turn over the page again to 117.116.
Sorry, I didn't.
117.116. That's the last part of the email that we are dealing with. You say there, I've been asked to go to Dubai on Monday without having seen this document. What do you mean by that?
That would have been the memorandum of understanding reviewed.
What is this about being asked to go to Dubai?
There was an invitation that I go to, I think it's an air show or of some sort.
Yeah.
Now, I don't recall specifics about the invitation, but in part I was to meet the President of Emirates and in part discuss the memorandum of understanding.
Did you accept this invitation?
I did accept the invitation.
Did you attend?
I did not.
Why was that?
On my side, some commitments emerged, but I capitalized on the fact that there was a trip by the president or the vice president. I can't remember whether he was, vice president at Emirates. He was coming to the country. Therefore, I thought I could then use that opportunity to meet a senior representative of Emirates while he's in South Africa so that I could also be able to attend to other pressing commitments that emerged. But I did release the CEO to travel to Dubai.
Thank you. Now, I'd like us to go to page. Okay, before we go there, can you then tell us, in your recollection, what happened after you wrote this email of the 2nd of May? Or what did the board do, or what then transpired?
In terms of
about this Emirates MOU. In other words, you get this presentation on the 2nd of May, then you respond. Mm-hmm. Do you recall then what the board did next, or what the executive did next, or?
There was an urgent request that we expedite the process of approving the MOU. But then the board had decided that a review team would be responsible to ensure that the MOU favors SAA as well. It does not take away the business from SAA. So the review team, which was led by Dr. Tambi, because I would want them to go on to the technicalities of the MOU. So Dr. Tambi is an aviation expert who was part of the board, and Sylvain Bosch was part of the team that led that reviewed the MOU, including senior pilots of SAA with over 15 to 20 years of experience, who's got the interests of the airline at heart, not only just senior pilots, but the selection of the people that were going to be party to the review of the Emirates MOU comprised of a number of people with different technical expertise. Therefore, at that time I write this email, I'm not receiving responses, but at the same time there is pressure that we must approve this MOU, but the review team is yet to present to the board because there were issues of the airline giving away its market share, but at the same time there is a pressure that I must approve, we must approve. Therefore there was continuation. At some point, the review team came back and presented to the board, and the board took decisions around the MOU.
Right. If we may now go back to the beginning of your file, page 2A. Called notes of the discussion session held on Wednesday. You see that? Have you got it? Now,
yes.
It's been accepted that the date as it appears there of 27 May 2014 is actually a typo, and it actually should be 2015. What I want you to go through is point 3 at the bottom, under the heading purpose. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
May you please read what it says there?
The chairperson explained that the purpose of this session was necessitated by the request from National Treasury to study the Emirates SAA partnership proposal from Emirates and submit its position regarding the said proposal to the shareholder. This would have to be done by 29 May 2015, as this was the date that the board would meet the Minister of Transport to articulate its position regarding the Emirates proposal. The chairperson also pointed out that the company's strategy has been leaked to Emirates, who wanted to implement it. And the fact that this had been unknown to the board, to the board members until recently.
Right. Do you recall this meeting?
My lady, I recall this meeting.
If you see at 1.1, it says present, and it has Ms. Dudu Myeni via telecom, chairperson via telecom. Is it true that you attended this meeting via telecom?
I did. I attended the meeting via telecom because it was an urgent meeting.
Why was it normal for you to attend meetings via telecom?
It was not normal, but when, my lady, there are procedures in all entities and organizations. The board charter states that if any director calls or wants to call a meeting, you must allow for 7 days so that you adjust your diary, whoever else adjusts his or her diary, because other directors are working. But also you don't want to be on the faces of the executives who must implement your strategy as the board. Therefore, you just don't wake up the next day and want to call a meeting. But this was necessitated by the letter that came from the National Treasury. I think there was pressure in all fronts, if I may. And therefore, because of that urgency, we needed to respond to National Treasury. Therefore, those board members that were available at a short notice, we circulated the letter from National Treasury for them, but at the same time, we said, let us come in and discuss this letter so that we are able to take a collective decision and respond to the minister.
Thank you. Now, I want you to take me back into the file again to page 117.119. The document starts there, but where we are actually going is 117.125, but it starts at 119.
I have the document before.
Now, the document is called Emirates Discussion. Do you remember this?
I remember it.
What was this?
Excuse me.
What was this document?
This is a document by the executives presented to the board. It's Emirates Discussion, and it's titled Board Discussion and dated the 27th of May 2015.
Right. Now, can we go to page 117.125 of this document?
Yes.
Got a heading, it says risk and the way forward. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then there's another subheading called way forward.
Yes.
You see that? When we then read what the first bullet point is of this presentation.
It says risk and the way forward.
We should do something about it. This must be.
And this is the live broadcast of Dudu Myeni's testimony into that delinquency case, where she's now setting the record straight on many allegations that she's been facing, and she's been responding to media reports and allegations, including even those that we heard from the state capture inquiry. And this is a live event that will be keeping you posted on throughout the day here on SABC News and the agenda. For now, we're going to meet again at the top of the hour with a full rundown of your news here on the agenda.